Hello and welcome back to D7R TV. You know who I am by now. And today I'd like to first of all give thanks for the first 400 subscribers. Woo! Keep it coming, guys. Hope you've enjoyed what you've seen so far in our little YouTube journey. I didn't used to do this, so I'm still new. I'm not Matt Armstrong. One day I wish I could emulate what he does success-wise on the YouTube platform, but it is what it is. You've got to start somewhere. And today, we'll do something a little bit different. It won't be rust orientated, it'll be race fab. And we're gonna build a sort of rudimental, quite simple turbo manifold for the Sierra build we've got next door. We would ideally want to use next door as the workshop, because that is the plan, but it's still not quite sorted out yet, and lighting's pretty bad. It's pretty bad in here, but it's even worse next door with the mez floor above us, but we'll crack on. So on my desk behind me is a few parts and materials that you're going to need, and if you're interested, stay tuned. So here we have it then, guys. We've got a couple of jigs laid out, and this is an MX5 one, and this is the Z-Tech one, and this is what we're going to be building. But to make one of these jigs to start off with, you're going to need a flange. And a flange comes in all different shapes and sizes. This is an exhaust manifold flange. And this is where your exhaust gases come out of. So you want to start with one of those. Secondly, or whatever you want to say, is your turbo of choice flange. I mean, this is our little D7R laser cut flange for a TD04 Subaru turbo with either KKK or IHI, whatever range. This is a TD05. It's a bit big for what we're going to use, for what we need, but they've got the same flanges and the same orientation as a TD04, and we'd be liking to see between 280 and 300 horsepower on a TD04. So you've got your turbo inlet gas inlet flange, then you've got your turbo exhaust flange. So this one, please get the correct flange for your application. This sits on there. Forget the wastegate out of the way. As I say, this is a mock-up turbo, but it's going to be perfect for what we need. So this goes there, and then you build your exhaust down pipe off here, and then marry it up to your exhaust. This one is the inlet for the turbo. So this orientation will be somewhere along the lines of that. So what else we're going to use? We're going to do something a little bit different to what everyone else does. Is we use T-pieces to go onto the cylinder 2 and cylinder 3 exhaust ports. And obviously these are not the correct size. You want these to marry up nice. So we'll be trimming these down to suit. These go on the end. Obviously that's how far that is out, about 25 millimeters. But we'll be measuring up, marking out, showing you how to do all that. You're probably thinking, what's going on with that flange here? What are you going to do with that? Well, I figured, and I know because I built a few of these in the past, that if you go T-piece on T-piece, that's a nice transition. So that goes, exhaust gases come round there, exhaust gases come out of there, but then you've got a nice transition to come out of there and into your turbo. So this is the way we like to go. A lot of people go straight from there, then they'll have another one of these here, another 90 bend. This is schedule 10. I think it's like gas pipe, stainless steel, bends, and they're 90 degrees. They are, I think they're 1.5D, which is the radius. So a lot of people do these, and then they'll do something in the middle. Either way, that's not important. I'll show you my way, and that is what's important because that's what I'm trying to teach you. So let's go. So this is sort of the layout we're going to use. So that's exhaust port 1, 2, 3 and 4. And once it's all trimmed down, that should fit snugly into these ports. This orientation here, that'll get cut down the middle. So we'll be making a semicircle, so we won't need this half. And then that extra piece will be cut out of here. So that sits flush and into these ports here. And then you're going to have your turbo flange on, like so. Right, so over to the Sierra, and the Z-Tac sits in the same sort of footprint as this 2 litre. I don't know what engine code this is. I'm sure I can find out, but is it on this engine bay? No, I'm not sure what engine this is. It's a 2 litre, could be an 8 valve I think. But you need to figure out how much space you've got to play with, and that can determine where your turbo is going to sit. Because if you've got a really tight engine bay, you need to account for that in the type of manifold you're going to build. I mean, we're not going for 500 horsepower or something that's really high flowing. We want something that's going to get the exhaust gases out, spool the turbo quick, and get out of the car as fast as possible for the power goal we're aiming for. So on the Sierra, we go up against the head, and I'm looking at the chassis rail, and I've got about 270 millimeters, maybe 280 at a push, and that's from the head to where the chassis rail is. Obviously this is not going to be in the way anymore because we won't need it. We'll be going for a cone filter, which is going through a turbo intake pipe. Then you've got around 350 millimeters to play with across here. So we've got more than enough room to play with. The turbo is going to sit about here, and then your downpipe of your turbo is going to go tucked down there under the car and to the exhaust. Simples. Right, back to the place where the magic happens, and we're going to talk about hardware. This is my TIG machine. I don't call it a welder because I am the welder. This is the TIG machine. It's TIG welder, whatever floats your boat, it's my TIG machine. And this is a Thermalarc 202. They're old but gold. I've had this for about 6 years, and this has had more abuse than Mia Khalifa, and she's still going strong. So here we got a bench grinder or bench sander, and I use that to sharpen my tungsten, and this is where your arc comes out and the welding happens and all the magic happens. That's a FUPA 12 microfluoric gas lens. So that gives you the nice rainbow effects you want on the stainless steel. And here's my little box of odds and sods. I mean, that's a massive gas lens. That's like a 16 or something. These ceramics, they're numbered for the different sizes. That's a 7. Most of them are 7s because they don't really tend to go any smaller. Well, I've got some smaller ones somewhere, but that's not important because we won't be using them. I've got a big Makita chop saw. I have got a bandsaw, but it cuts like it's had a fair few stellars on a night out. So I need to get that recalibrated. And then we've got a trusty 4-inch grinder. It's a little Bosch unit. These things are bomb proof. Back to the TIG. And we're using argon. Pure argon. Not mixed, pure argon. Right, so back to the jig. We want to get it lined up straight. And you can see the gap. And there's about 15 millimeters each side. There or thereabouts. About 15 millimeters. So what you want to do is, you need to shorten this area here. So between them two, there's about 30 millimeters. So you want to take 15 off this and 15 off this. So make a little mark. Make your little 15mm mark there, and your little 15mm mark on here. Start one side, meet in the middle. So we mark 15mm on there. So when we go over to the chop saw, we line that up. Then we chop the 15mm off each. That should give us that 30mm shortness. And hopefully they should sit in here nice. So if I line that up there, it's pretty close, but the 4-inch grinder with the flap disc will take up the difference. You've been watching a few of my videos, you know PPE is key. You want a face shield and some ear defenders, because this is really loud and sparks really hurt, especially when you go into your eyeballs, and you don't want none of that. When you button back up to your jig, you should have something that looks a bit like this. And you've probably seen me shaving the edges, and I've caused like a groove, and that's called a weld prep. And I'm going to come clean. I buggered up the measurement a little bit. I mean, I could have edited that out and kept my mouth shut, but it was about 5mm too short on each. So it's not 30mm. When you cut it, it works out about 20mm. So 10mm off each. So that makes no difference. I mean, I could always make it up across the rest of the cuts, but now I know if I cut the rest the same, it's no biggie. I've got plenty of bends, so yeah, it's always a win. You don't want to make that mistake. Just, it's been a while, as I said, but that sits nice there. Obviously well, I say obvious because it's obvious to me, when you start welding this up, it's going to shrink and stretch, so you want a little bit of a gap to make up the difference, because this is going to shrink, it's going to stretch, it's going to go in different directions. So just tack it, a couple of tacks on there, get them all so they all line up first. You want this, you want that, and then another T-piece there, all cut to size first. Make sure all that's happy, and then you can tack it to the actual flange, because then you can go about cutting this section to go on there. Winning. So then we're going to butt up the two inside ports, 2 and 3. And as we know, that 15 and 15 didn't quite work. We're only going to take 10 and 10 off. So 10mm off this one. And 10mm off this one. Then we're going to go to the saw. And same again. Well, you got to flip it over because of the orientation. So 10mm. That's the way it sits on the saw. So that's the way we're going to cut it. So let's go. Right, so that's them ones cut. So next is cut this, and then I've already cut this for the other side. So I took 15mm off that and 15mm off that, and it didn't end up being quite right. So if I take 10 off this one, it should marry up nice. We hope. Greatest success, all we want, I like you. Right, they're all cut and they all marry up. So you got 4, 3, 2, 1. There's a little gap in them, but that's how you want it to be, because you need to fill the gaps and you have to allow for shrinkage. So this is ready to be tacked up We're going to use some thinners to clean this off, and we're going to give it a good clean up beforehand. So, winning. Alright, so we've got some thinners on a rag, lint-free cloth. Now you see it. No, you don't. Like magic. Should be dynamo, me. So you're getting all the writing off and stuff. Any dirt, grime and stuff from where they've been in storage. Sorry if I go out of shot. I spend a lot of my time with my head in the way of the camera, so I'm trying my best so you can see what I'm actually doing. Bit of a spruce up, like so.
Swear I cannot do no wrong. Why I don't have much to say? All that talking on the phone, but you're never making plays. Playing phone tag, you're it. Pick up more bags, too legit. Swear I cannot do no wrong. Why I don't have much to say? All that talking on the phone, but you're never making plays. Playing phone tag, you're it. Pick up more bags, too legit. I love when the money come. I get bored, I'm thumbing some. Blues and pinks, I'm running on. In my lane, no one-on-one. Fake love, I'm allergic to. Real love, yeah, I need me some. Call my baby.
Now sure, put that together, all cleaned and all the correct orientation. It's a bit of a faff trying to figure out which goes where. It's sort of a puzzle, but now she's ready for TIG welding. Winning! Right, TIG machine switched on, piped up. So we got the gas on. We got it on about 15 CFH, and we want to click down to DC mode. We go to stick, because then we can adjust our amperage, and I think we're going to go for about 60 amps. And then you want to click back onto HF TIG. And the reason why we have to do all this is because I use a foot pedal and no buttons. Some TIG welders have a dial, but this one doesn't. So DC, base current 15. You want to set your post flow. I'll set about 5 seconds. Everyone has their own little way of doing things, but this is how I do it. So that's the TIG setup. Before I get started, we're using some 1.6 3/16mm stainless rods, and they're double this length. I'll cut them down. I'm not exactly Cane Kid, and I can't feed rod to save my life, and I just end up just dabbing, then moving my hand position. I mean, there's better TIG welders out there and there's better ways of doing it, but that's the way I do it and that's the way I've always done it. I'm not comfortable feeding rod with my fingers. I mean, I should probably learn, but for how often I do this, I mean, I haven't TIG welded in a minute, so it works for me how I do it. So that's my way, and that's the way it's going to be. Right, so I've hit it with a couple of taxes to hold it in place. It's already moved a little bit. It's closed up the gap at the bottom. And then I've got to do a couple more tacks to make sure I'm happy with how it's going to sit. And then once it's decided to move where it needs to be, I can tack the bottom of these to the flange. But I'll turn the amperage up a little bit, just so we get some good penetration in there. It's bolted to the flange. The flange is bolted to the jig to stop any warping, because this thing will literally move all over the gaff. I mean, I've got a big copper block at the back as a good earthing point. I'll move that around as I see fit. So I'm going to rotate it round now, probably this way. and get a good tack down in these parts here, because that's where the gaps are. I mean, I'm never ever going to get it really straight with the chop saw. I mean, I try my best to let the chop saw do all the hard work, but it still does cut slightly on the piss, is the easiest way to say. But my bandsaw should have done this job, but that's worse. So it's the lesser, the chop saw is the lesser of the two evils. Right, so that's my first 3 little runs. I haven't used the TIG welder for about a year. So, I mean, if I did this every day, I'd be an Instagram welder. This isn't a video to teach you how to be an Instagram welder by any means. And it ain't going to teach you how to weld or TIG weld. It's just showing you the process. So, they're quite nice little tidy runs, if I may say so myself. I mean, I've been doing it long enough just to jump on my TIG welder at any time and do a job and be a fairly tidy job. I mean, there's better welders out there. I don't proclaim to be the best out there, but I'm decent at what I do. And if it carries on like that, I'm sure everyone will be more than happy about it. Right, so what we have now is I've tacked in strategic places the bends to the flange so that it doesn't pull away and shrink, so it's not actually in the holes anymore. This won't move now. It'll move, but it'll be welded to the flange, so it won't be a problem. What we're going to do now is going to use a new tungsten, so we're going to cut it in half Hopefully you don't snap it. You're a bit fiddly. They do sometimes splinter and go to shit. For that one. But we'll worry about that in a minute. What we're going to do is we're going to sharpen it. This is how you sharpen the tungsten. You can get tungsten sharpeners, but I ain't got one. So this will do. They get very hot, so be careful. You want a really nice sharp pointy end, like so. Nice new sharp tungsten, winning. So that's all the runners welded up, all around the inside, all the tricky bits, all along the top. And yeah, anybody can do this. Don't fall into the trap of thinking someone can teach you how to do this. You teach yourself. It's the only way you're going to teach yourself. It's time under the hood. It's this what's going to teach you how to TIG weld. And failure. Don't get watching all the Instagram welders, all the slayers, all the best in the world, 'cause you're not going to learn a thing. The only thing you're going to realise is how hard it is to try and emulate them. It's not going to happen. I didn't learn by watching Kane Kid and stuff and all the other slayer welders. I watched the shows, but I learned through trial and error and hood time. That is the only way. And you'll be surprised how quick you pick it up when you watch someone who can't weld and see their trials and tribulations, see where they went wrong and how they corrected it. Watch the people that can't weld properly. That's the only way you're going to teach yourself, because a light bulb, it'll go off in your head. You'll be like, oh, okay. It's as simple as that. And that's my little tip of the day. You're welcome. So here we have it so far. Not bad for a rusty welder. It's fairly neat and tidy, if I may say so myself. We turn the heat up to get the penetration into the runners, because you've got a thicker flange to work to. I mean, this is 3mm thick, and that's 10. So you need to take that into account. So next up, what we're going to be doing is taking our other T-piece, and we're going to be welding the flange to it, the turbo flange. But make sure you get the orientation right, because last thing you want is to go fit your turbo, you go, whoa, yeah, buzzing, and then the turbo's upside down, because you'll be in a whole heap of shit there, won't you? But just be mindful of that. So get your turbo mocked up. I know what way they've got to go. I've built a fair few of these, to be fair, over the past. So yeah. So what we're going to do, we're not going to use this full length because it's pointless. So we're going to take 15mm off each end, and we're going to mark it out. It's going to go in the chop saw this way. So we'll mark 15mm on this side. Then flip her over and 15mm this side, like so. Then we're going to go over to the bench grinder or the chop saw, and we're going to cut this off. So that's now cut. It's had a weld prep on there. You've probably seen one of these before. It's called a Fabbing deburring tool. Makes all this really sharp spirally shit. Makes it safe to touch, but I won't recommend it because you never know, you might get a rogue one. What we want to do now is angle this the way we want it. We don't want the turbo to sit flat. We want it to kick it up a little touch. So we're going to get it on the edge of the table here. And I probably want to kick it up about that much. I've got an angle finder. So I'll make a mark here. In the middle. Angle finder. Try and find your angle you want. Little mark on the table. Get the angle you want. So you're gonna have to mirror it both sides. Lock off the angle finder. So you got your little point there, so you can line that up. Eye up the middle, because then you can measure that then. So we're going to put it there, in the middle of the dot, a little mark. I know I've got to rotate this round. Move it to suit. A little mark here. Draw your line and get rid of that now. Put that there. Your line's lined up. It's about there. I don't know whether you can make it out. Do this a little bit. So I've got 45mm to the middle of the line there. And I've got 45mm to the middle of the line there. So if I draw a line across there, I'm square. So, winning. So if I just put a little mark there on the back edge, I can flip it over. line my 2 marks up. To make a mark. And I can take that, line that up there. To the other side, mark that. There we have our cut lines, like so. Right, over to our vise. Got the T-piece in. I'm going to swap out the flap disc for a cutting disc. Never ever make the mistake of having this on the opposite side. You need to see the writing. That's the way that they're supposed to spin. If you didn't know that, well, now you do. Right, so now the T-piece has been trimmed. It's in position and you can see where it sort of needs to be cut. So get your marker and mark the edges. Like so, get it in position first where you want it. So I want it kicking up there. And across the bottom. Across the top. You are going to keep trimming until this sits nice and flush inside the manifold and becomes part of it basically. So what we're going to do is we're going to in fact do a little line in the center where the weld is before, up this runner. We're going to cut this out and we're just going to trim until this sits flush with that and that, like so. So as you can see now, it's a little bit more to trim. So that's going to go across there. So I'll get my marker pen. bloody awkward. So I reckon if I trim this last little section off here, that should sit pretty much where it needs to be. We hope. A little bit more finesse and a little bit more with a flap disc just to shape her up a bit more. You can see the end result. It's pretty flush. The gap's nice round, but it's pretty gnarly on the inside, so we want our cheviv and then clean the burrs up on the inside. Careful not to cut your fingers off. So these burrs are pretty gnarly. Now what we want to do is put our weld prep back in. So with a flap disc, just do our little V. So it's sort of a guideline. We need to do it to this as well. And it'll allow the weld to get some penetration. We're also going to run a bead of weld down the middle of here as well for strength. Right, so you can see a nice smooth transition. Whoops. So when that's welded in there, it's going to be nice and it'll flow well. So it's going to come straight out of here, straight into the turbo, straight out of here, straight into the turbo. This runner here is going to get dragged into there and into there. A lot of people use more boxy. So they'll do like a straight pipe here, drill some holes with a hole saw and then just go straight into that, then straight into a pipe out the top. It's not really the way I like to go about it. I like nice smooth transitions like this, so they work best. But we can't just weld this directly into the manifold now. What we have to do is weld this flange on top of this TP section. But we're going to do that separately. And what I'm also going to do is modify the jig so I can bolt this down so it acts like this in the heatsink, so it doesn't warp. I mean, it's about 12mm thick, but that don't mean a bit of anything to a bit of heat. So we don't go straight off the bat as well. We're going to line the turbo up before it goes on. But I know that this triangle section needs to be straight down the middle. And then what we'll do is, next up, it's going to run a bead of weld down the inside of here. Then what we'll do is, the turbo needs to go like that. So this needs to go like that. So we'll make a mark like there and there. I can flip it over onto the jig and then bolt these down, and then we can tack it in place. Then we can do a full weld around it like so. What I've got here is my 1.8 and 1.6 MX5 jig. So I'm going to use one of the holes to line up. You have to flip and reverse it. It's a mirror image of itself. So I'm going to tighten one of these in here to keep it still. If you only have to drill 2 holes, it's better than drilling 3. So get that nice and tight. Right in the centre of the hole. You're better off with a gasket because then it's quite close to the jig instead of being 10mm. Then what you want to do is find the Allen key. That's what we need to do. Take this back off. Get a hammer and your centre punch. Punch that, then drill.
Thought that I'd be healing now. I didn't think I'd have to feel this now. I thought I would've moved on, but somehow the feeling's still strong. Like I'll be on my way out, thinking that I'm good, right? Suddenly you pass by, now you're stuck on my mind, thinking I was done now. But I guess I'll never be tired of you, of you, of you.
So that's the method of making a jig. It doesn't matter whether it's a turbo flange or the exhaust flange. Is get your datum, which will be probably a gasket, like an exhaust gasket or a turbo gasket. Put a marker pen in the center of the holes you want to drill. Center punch. Then use a really small drill bit because it's quicker to drill yourself a pilot hole. Then you want to work up to the size thread you want to work to. So this was a 5.5. Then I used a 6.5. Then a 7.2 bit, and that allowed me to run an M8 tap through the holes. So now with a bit of luck, probably not going to go through, probably need to clean it up a bit. Always a little stiff. I cleaned that one up before because that's one of the original holes. Run the tap back through them because they're not playing ball. They should have gone through. Probably picked up a little bit of a burr on the way up, unless these are knackered. Yeah, M8 by 1.25, that should go through. I've literally just tapped these. And it's making a mockery of me. What's going on? No, we don't want to play ball, but either way, they're going to go in, so I'll just use another tap. So now they're in. I had to use a different tap. I think the thread was a bit knackered on it, but it's done now. So you can see your orientation of where your turbo wants to sit. You get that lined up there, like so. Get it square. Look there in the middle to make sure the ports all match up, so there's no big overhang. And now that is ready to weld on. This is our turbo flange welded up. We did it this way because it's a lot tougher when you try and weld it directly on the manifold. Plus, it'd be hard to get this flange flat because of the warping. So this can be removed now, then it can be welded onto the manifold. Right, so now that our turbo flange is welded on, we can go about welding this T-piece section in, and that will conclude it. I've just gone across with the Scotch-Brite just to get the pen marks off when I was marking out, but as you can see, it's nice and flat and sits how we want it to be. It's just slow and steady, just cut what you need to cut, don't overcut, otherwise you'll be starting again. So let's get to welding. So there we have it, guys. That's the conclusion of the turbo manifold for the Zetec conversion for the Sierra. Hopefully you've learnt a trick or two. There's not a lot to it. It's a bit time consuming, a bit tedious, a bit precise. Don't cut too much off, otherwise you leave yourself short. But as I said, this isn't a video of teaching you how to weld. only you can teach yourself how to weld by watching people that fail first. That's my top tip. Watching Slayer Instagram welders are not going to teach you how to weld. Only you're going to teach yourself how to weld. But manifold's done. I mean, you can clock it whatever way you want. I mean, this isn't the turbo for this car or this application. We're getting a brand new TD04 or a good second-hand one. That's up to Dale at Bailey Performance to send us up because he's supplying the turbo. But yeah, simple enough to follow along to make a jig. You see me make a little jig for the turbo flange. Same principle for an exhaust flange. You can use one of these jigs. I mean, if you're a bit more skilled and you want to be a bit more elaborate, you can knock up something like this, then add pieces on for like a big ram or manifold or sidewinder, anything like that. You just add pieces on. I mean, this is simple, stupid stuff. For me anyway, but at least I've shown you how we go about making one of these manifolds. So if you're feeling brave, have a go for yourself. You've seen exactly what goes into it. I've even left my cock-ups in there, so I think that's important. I mean, everyone fails. I don't edit the fails out if I can help it. I only edit out if I swear pretty bad. So, yeah. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Hope you learned a thing or two. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace out.